From here on, the different videos you will see are based on the Onum platform. In these videos, you will learn how to use the Onum platform, understand what information each of the tabs on the left contains, and what kind of data we can find in each one. The first tab we're going to explore is the Home tab. As the name suggests, this is the first screen we'll encounter when we access Onum. On this screen, the first thing we will find is the time filter. In this filter, we can select the time range for the information we want to retrieve, which will be reflected both in the statistics shown here and in the data processed in the Sankey diagram further below. For example, leaving the predefined 12-hour filter, the first thing we'll see is a number, a summary of the net data savings being achieved within the platform. How is this measured? It's measured by looking at the amount of data entering through the listeners and comparing it to the amount of data exiting through the data sinks. This number reflects how much data is not being sent, meaning that the data being sent is 100 minus this percentage. Around 20% of the data is being sent, and 79.36% is being saved. This means we're avoiding sending this volume of data to the seams. On the right, we can see the number of events per second entering through the listeners and the number exiting. This simply shows that some events are not being sent because they are not relevant for the destinations. Next is the information on the volume of data that has entered the platform. This figure, 3.71 gigabytes in this case, indicates the total number of data received. We can confirm this with the first chart mentioned. We have a 24-hour estimate of expected behavior. As you can see, at the bottom there are numbers that show a variation. This variation simply shows how different this number is from the number in the previous time range. That is, how the 211.9 EPS events per second changed compared to the previous 12 hours. There is a 0.4% increase from the previous range. As you can see, the number is very similar, so in this case the variation is minimal. There are no significant differences from one period to another. At the bottom we can see the Sankey diagram that shows visually the flow of data for the events entering Onum. There are different columns. First, the listeners, then clusters, labels, pipelines, and data sinks. This lets us see how much data enters through each listener. For instance, we have one listener on port 2222, another on 2227, and another on 2228. In this case, we can see how the data is distributed among the deployed clusters. Here there is only one deployed cluster, so all the data flows through it. However, these listeners have different labels. One for Unix, one for cameras, and one for OCP Kubernetes. As you can see, the OCP Kubernetes label has the most events and the most data being processed, but we can view the distribution for each. For each label, we can see how the data is processed in different pipelines. In this case, there are 3 pipelines processing data, and we can see where the data flows to. The data in this pipeline is all savings because it's not being sent anywhere. Meanwhile, for the Kubernetes OCP pipeline, some data is sent to Devo and some is saved or not sent. We can do the same with the camera data pipeline. As you can see, this is a very visual and simple way to understand how data is processed in Onum. Lastly, if there's any column that doesn't seem relevant, for example if it only contains one element, we can hide it to make the Sankey diagram easier to view and more uniform. For listeners, labels, pipelines and data sinks, it's possible to create new components right from this screen. However, this process will be covered in upcoming videos.